Good to go.
All right, we're here on the Spread Love podcast. I believe this is number 26. So we are wow, we're half a year in. This is pretty cool. Pretty cool. We don't have all the guys yet because that's what we do. We come on one at a time, I suppose. So we have a very
Spread Love podcast.
yeah.
This is number 20.
So look at me. Got my phone giving all kinds of information to people. So we have a Collins, Felicia M. Collins. And we've known Felicia for the better part of, I don't want to say how many years.
Don't say it.
We were all kids back then.
Mere children.
Name
that year.
So we're gonna get into Felicia's history, but one of the reasons why we have her on is because we did an Al Jarreau tour together in 1989. 89. That's when we met Felicia.
Yeah.
I'm going to go into the story, and I want you to go into it for us a little later, because I want to kind of give our fans who have probably never heard this story before. And in fact, I don't think any of us know what I found out about a month ago on social media when I posted something about Al. Felicia commented, and I was like, what? So we talked a little bit about it. So I can't wait to hear
Claude,
more about it.
You have to let them know who she is. Let them
Mark,
know.
what do you get? So Felicia is an amazing guitarist, amazing singer, producer, all around great person. Come to find out, you were a graphic design major in college?
That's right. Yep.
Come on now.
Wow.
That's awesome. Now, other people may know Felicia from being on the Dave Letterman show. She was in the Paul Schaefer band for 21 years.
22, actually.
22.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Years. Right?
That is awesome. So if you saw that show at any time, Felicia was over there killing on the guitar and singing at times. Because I heard you singing, I was like, what?
Or the bongos.
Oh, that's true, right? That's true.
I didn't even realize that. I was like, I know that you are the master of the guitar, and you'd see her over there just losing her mind on that guitar, and under Paul's direction, he just seemed like he would just take you guys in the wildest directions at any moment.
Every day, any moment.
You have to tell us how that is, because it was just always amazing to see you there. And then I'm gonna tell you how I found out about the bongos thing. But go ahead, tell us what that is like.
Well, at first I was scared to death because I thought it was going to be just, typical gig. You get the material ahead of time, you rehearse it, and you just play it for an audience. I didn't realize the part of the show, that was what we called our bumper tunes. We would rehearse most of those to get our repertoire started in the beginning. But then there would be things that would happen during the show because Dave liked to tape the show in real time live. So he might be talking to someone, one of his guests, and the guest would say, oh yeah, one of my first concerts I ever went to was, Shaka Khan. My mother took me when I was 11. So I knew that meant, we're getting ready to play a Shaka Khan song. But I wouldn't know which one until we're about to count it down.
Wow.
And we had ear monitors. So fortunately we could talk to each other to give us an idea of what we're going to do. And Paul would go, let's do Ain't Nobody. And then we would say, okay, what key? I'd say something like, I think it's E flat minor. Okay, E flat minor. Okay, you take this harmony, you take this harmony. And we would talk about it for about 20 seconds. And then you'd hear the AD go 3, 2, 1, and we'd have to start. And we never played it, never rehearsed it.
Wow.
And that was every single day. So I really learned to get my confidence up and get over just, like shaking, scared to death all the time. Just go, you know what, we're just jumping in. And I learned that I trained my ear to go really, really fast. And I remembered I started calling songs too. So that helped me because I would call songs that I knew.
You and Claude have that in common. Claude is usually the shot caller when it comes to us choosing tunes for the show.
Yeah.
Or the audibles on stage, because
right.
he'll only do what he can do.
That is no lie. I'm like, this is what we're gonna do right now.
But it helps having a crew with you that knows it, though, what you're calling. So that, fortunately, Paul Schaefer knows every song ever recorded.
Yeah.
And I could always call a song, and he and Willie and Anton, they always knew whatever song. They already knew it. So we were good to go.
Yeah.
So that didn't leave for any boring moments then. That just kept it all fresh for
Always.
all these years.
Yeah, the whole time.
You're not coming to that gig sleeping.
No. You're wide awake. You're on your toes. And it was a lot of fun. It got to be fun. Once I got over my fear, like the first few months, and I got more comfortable with it, then it was just a complete blast.
Yeah.
So have you had any crazy moments where there was perhaps something of a train wreck?
Oh, heck
We wouldn't know, but do you have any memorable wrecks?
Oh, yeah. We've had some wrecks. Not a lot, though. I just know that had to have happened in 22 years, even though I can't really think of
You try to put them out of your mind if they occurred, so.
I can just remember like having to give my mic to Will Smith because we started jamming on something when he was a guest. And as he was leaving the stage and saying goodbye to the audience, he looks over at us and I could see it in his face. I'm like, he's coming over here and he's going to join in. And sure enough, he comes over and he steps over and he gets into the bandstand. And one of the A2 guys comes running over and hands him a mic. And it was probably only like 3 seconds, but it seemed like it was 10 minutes where Will's pushing a button, trying to get the mic to work. And we're like, oh my God, somebody give him a mic. So I just remember having to take my mic off of the stand, hand it to him, put my guitar down so I could give him some space to play in and move over to the congas, start playing congas on this song. And finally, he had my mic and I remember him looking at me going like, thanks. Because he was a little embarrassed trying to sing to the crowd and there was nothing coming out and everybody's like waiting and waiting. Wow. And that was one little train wreck I could remember. But for the most part, everything went really smooth on that gig, for the most part.
For 22 years.
Pretty much. They had, because, before I joined the show, he was doing his old show on NBC for I don't know how many years. I mean, I remember watching him when I was in school. And so he brought out, when he went to CBS, I think he brought over pretty much the same crew, and they just had it down by then. There was no real learning curve or anything. They just had it down. So there weren't too many train wrecks or accidents, and every day it was just pretty smooth.
So you found that in being able to pick it up like this and having to do that, did that get your ear acclimated to other gigs after that in being able to do that?
Yes.
Regularity? Okay.
Oh my gosh. I think that was the biggest, aside from the volume of songs that I learned, that's the obvious part. But for what you just said, that you just hit it on the head. For me, that was the biggest change in my skill set was how my ear changed. Because prior to that, I would get like a tape of songs or have to, refer to my records or something, rewind. What was that? Rewind. What was that? Rewind. Get that. What's that chord? And it would take me so long to learn a tune and then retain it. After doing this gig with Paul, it got to the point where I could hear a song, pick it up immediately. I knew where to go. I knew what inversion the chord was. I knew the voicing, because my ear just got so used to hearing everything.
Wow.
Mhm.
And I got to the point where I would just sit in my living room sometimes and just learn songs, which is something I never really did before. I would just learn tunes I had to learn for a gig. But I would just sit around and go, I always wanted to do Everlasting Love. And I put the CD on and go, okay, got it. Pick up the car. And I could just hear the whole song. I could hear the progression. And I just kept adding more and more songs like that. Because you're right, when you're put on the spot like that, your ear gets so fast and so in tune.
Yeah.
I feel you. I definitely feel
So
you.
Felicia,
Yes.
I'm going to stop you for a moment, and we've got a bunch of people on here on YouTube checking this out, and I'm trying to hold them off for this story that I want you to tell, but
Okay.
I want to let them know, the people who are coming on, we're talking to Felicia Collins. Felicia is an amazing guitar player, vocalist, songwriter extraordinaire. We've known Felicia for, again, I can't say how many years, but we were on an Jarreau tour with Felicia back in 1989. And I want to go back to something, 1986, L is for Lover, the song Pleasure.
Oh, yeah.
Come on now, Felicia. You were
Oh.
feeling it on that. And I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Were you singing on that as well?
Yes.
That was you. That's right. Okay.
Wow.
That's
I met Al that day.
Mm-hmm.
That's the day I met Al Jarreau. I was hanging around with Nile Rodgers a lot at the time.
Yeah.
Because Nile was like, he was like my guru. He's the one that put me on. And because I came by the studio one day. I don't know where he got my number from. I think somebody brought him to a band rehearsal. This is way back. I must have been like 18 or 19 or something. Brought him to a band rehearsal. He loved the band. And then I ran into him. I was hanging out with the bass player. We were going to the movies, and I was driving Zarek's car, and I was trying to parallel park, and it was right in front of Niall's building, which I didn't know. Niall was walking his dog, and we saw him across the street and said, "Hey, is that Nile Rodgers?" And we called him over, and then he said, "Oh, wow." He goes, "Oh, it's The Take." We were called The Take at the time. And I exchanged numbers with Niall, and he invited me to come down to the studio, and that's how I started hanging out with Niall. He loved the way I played because I played just like him.
Wow.
And he would send me on sessions that he couldn't do, and that's how I met Whitney, because Jelly Bean used to do some production for Whitney, and I met Whitney by coming and playing guitar on her songs. I think the first one was Love Will Save the Day. So anyway, I went over to visit Niall one day, and he had Al in the studio. And they were doing that song Pleasure Games, and Niall wanted me to sing something. She goes, I need another voice, because he had the other background singers on there already. And he says, I need another voice with Al. So I was singing along with him. And he says, no, don't just double it. I said, you want harmonies? He said, yeah, like tag every other line with a harmony. So I was doing that in the verses, and he liked it. And then he told me, he says, Felicia, sing this on the hook. Whoa, oh, oh. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And I thought he was gonna have like harmonies as a background part, and he just left it as like a single vocal line with Al.
Wow.
Just left it on there, and Al loved it. And then Al said, you can play, is that you playing guitar? And I said, yeah. He said, you wanna go on tour with me? And I told him, I said, I think you got it wrong about how I play. I said, I can't play with you. He said, why not? I said, I don't know how to play like that. I said, I can play like funk, some disco. I said, I can't play jazz. And he goes, girl, I don't just do jazz. He goes, I do funk, I do disco. I said, you do? I was so sure. I was like, I can't hang with nobody's Al Jarreau. No way. I said, no, you don't. I said, Al, believe me, you don't want me. And Niall said, Al, you want her. Believe me, you want her. And Al just like kept talking to me like every day until he convinced me. It took him about a week.
Wow.
And then he convinced me to give it a shot. And I loved it. I grew up, it was like going to gigging college when I got with Al. It was the most beautiful experience ever.
That makes the
Well,
sense
then
for us.
that's time for the segue then. I'm not sure all the guys know this, but Felicia, I need you to tell our fans and all of us here how the Al Jarreau tour for Take 6 came about.
Okay. All right. So I'm probably around about my third year in Al's band. And Spike Lee got a hold of me, probably through Nile. Everybody got hold of me through Nile. And he asked me if I would come to the studio because he was working with Al, I think, on the Do the Right Thing soundtrack. And I was wondering why he wanted me to come. He said, because he'd never met Al and he was nervous about working with Al. And I said, are you kidding me? I said, Al's the nicest guy in the world. You don't need me there, because he knew I was the only band member who lived in New York. And I think that's why he picked me to come. And I said, trust me. I said, you don't need me. I said, Al is the nicest guy in the world. You're going to have a blast. But, he was very nervous. He goes, would you please come just so he could have someone that he's used to being around? And I said, okay. So I hung out with Al at the studio. That's how I met Spike. And then the next day we were leaving to go to Atlantic City. And all the other band members would be flying in from LA. And since Al was in New York already, like normally they would send a limo for me and I would ride down to Atlantic City, but Al was there. So he swung by to pick me up. And for 48 hours, I had been listening to Take 6, the first album.
Wow.
Because a friend of mine, a good friend of mine who was a keyboard player, he came over to hang out one day and he brought that cassette. It was on a cassette tape. And he brought it over and he just said, just listen to this. And he popped it in. And I remember my jaw hitting the table. I said, who is that? He said, they're called Take 6. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So he said, here, you can keep this copy. I'll get another one. I was like, oh, thank you, thank you. And I listened to it non-stop. I fell asleep to it. I woke up to it because I'd never heard anything that good. So then the next day, 2 days later, rather, I'm getting in the car and bring up, Al comes and he helps me bring my bags. I get in there and I sit in, get in the back seat. And back then the limos used to have the tape decks hanging from the roof of the car.
That's right. They sure did.
And after saying hi to Al and blah, 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 shooting it for a couple minutes, I said, Al, I want to play something. And he said something like, oh, I figured you'd be DJing Collins. I said, no, I got something specific I want you to hear. You got to hear this. He said, what you got? So I said, I have our opening act for this summer. And I just remember he went, oh, you do you?
Wow.
And I said, listen to this, man. And I put it in, and it started right off with the orchestra warming up, and then the and I remember his eyebrow went up right at that point, and he didn't say a word. He listened to the whole thing. Then we played the next song, and we played the next song, and he just sat back and he just went, wow. And I said, right? And I said, just think about it. I said, just 6 microphones on stage. There's no band, there's no crew, a whole bunch more people to bring on tour with you. 6 microphones on stage, it'll change over like that. I said, plus, listen to the jazz, it's so deep. They're so good, and they're on your label.
You put the whole package together.
I had to say it.
Sold.
And I remember he just went, yeah, Collins. Yeah, Collins.
But that's awesome because
And that's how, and the next thing I knew, he was calling me about 3 weeks later saying, guess who's going on tour with us? And I thought he was going to mention someone in the band, you know, and I was like, who? He said, your boys. And I went, 10-6? He said, yup. I was like, yeah. I said, this is an awesome tour.
and we had so much fun, and we thank you
sure did.
for making that introduction. And we didn't know that. It's been 30 years, and we had no clue that you're the person who got us to Al Jarreau.
I thought you guys knew that.
We did
I had
not know
no
that.
idea. As a matter of fact, I was just loving on you because at the end of the tour, after I said I was trying to learn how to play the guitar, you just gave me your guitar.
Right, you remember that?
It was one of my first electric guitars. Yeah.
That was because you were the one, Dave, that was always mimicking the guitar on stage.
Right.
I said, this brother wants to play guitar, man.
Exactly.
Obviously, he wants to play guitar.
And
Man, I still have it. I was trying to get it out of storage, just around here somewhere.
You still have
I
it?
have the guitar. Yeah.
That makes me feel good that you kept that.
I modified it a couple of times, but I still have it.
All right.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So Felicia, tell us what you're doing now, musically and otherwise.
But you know what? You caught me at a good time because anything that I'm doing now literally just started in the last couple of weeks. For an entire year, all I have been doing is crying every day, being depressed. I mean, at some point in the day of every day since last March, I would cry maybe 1 or 2 times a day, just cry. I was so sad because, I mean, it's one thing if I get sad, because there's always something I can look to bring me right out of it. Right. But when everyone else is in the same storm, we might be in different boats, but we're definitely in the same storm.
For sure.
And it just broke my heart losing people. I mean, I don't mean to bring us down, so I'll speed right through this part. But just the way oh my gosh. The way I kept losing people.
Yeah.
During this past year was something I had never experienced before, never even got my mind prepared for.
Yeah.
And it just kind of took me out. You know, and the last one that really did it was my mom's sister, my Aunt Carolyn. That just devastated the clan. And we have a big family, we call ourselves the clan. And that we just, you know, that just shook us, you know, to the core. And it just didn't stop. And for the whole year, I haven't been playing the guitar. I haven't been watching, you know, I wouldn't watch any shows like the Grammys or I wouldn't watch the late night shows. I wouldn't watch anything having to do with music. And I just kind of turned it off. And everything that I was prepared to do last year, every single thing for the entire year was canceled by the end of April last year.
Yes, don't we know?
Nothing came back. And I was hoping that the hardship would make me all creative and start writing these brilliant songs, but it did just the opposite. It just shut off everything for a whole year. And it wasn't until just a couple of weeks ago, I was riding back upstate from my apartment in Manhattan with a friend of mine who's a guitar player, one of the Daly brothers. And just talking about guitars, talking shop with him. I don't know why something so small lit the fire back again.
Wow.
Just something like just a conversation. Just by the time I got back up to the house, I came in, I put music on. I remember the first thing I put on was a Barry Harris CD. And then I went and dug out the boxes because I just moved up here and everything is still in boxes. And I found my box full of guitar strings and started restringing my guitars.
Wow. Yeah.
And just little by little, just started doing things like setting up my little room, like this room right here with the lights, and I put my little studio together up here. I dug my speakers out. I got my my interface, my microphone. I even set my electronic drum kit. This has all been in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And then I hear from Claude, and I realize the light is poking through the cracks in the window again.
Oh yes, it is. Oh yes, it is.
I love
Absolutely.
it. I love it.
That's
Well, it's
amazing.
amazing.
I'm so
Amazing to
glad
see
to
that
see you back
smile.
on your feet. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
I'm
Just
like
the eye
coming back.
smile, y'all.
I'm
She's got
writing
that-
songs with Valerie Simpson, the legendary Valerie Simpson.
Wow.
We wrote the most beautiful song called Code Blue. It's so wonderful. And then I met this young guy named Samuelus who won the Apollo. He got in touch with me. And on the 21st of this month, we're going to go in the studio. I'm going to be producing his record.
Yeah.
And this all in the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
It went from death and nothing to this.
Yeah.
So you just got to keep your head to the sky,
Yes.
I think is the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
That's
just your
right.
story is inspiring to us because it's been a long, hard be home all the time, hope for something better, time for us as well. And even right now, we're all preparing to be on the road, as tomorrow. And for the first time, really, we're in front of live people.
Human beings?
Human beings that are probably close to us and everything. So we're excited too. And that we're sharing the light. We're sharing that light. You being on with us is a light.
I'm so happy to see you guys. I mean, like, I'm looking at you just thinking back to, the days of being on the road. And I'm just thinking of like, even, I was laughing, even thinking of like our jackets. Remember we used to have the pointy shoulder pads.
And the pointy hairdos.
Right, to put the flat tops and the gummies.
Oh, the 80s.
You guys were so cute though. You guys are so cute. You're adorable. Every single one of you.
And you guys were so just embracing of us as just like freshmen newbies that really were just getting our road cred up to speed. Every night I would come on stage and Ricky Lawson would let me play the drums just on the backbeat. And nobody knew I was up there.
I didn't know till right this second.
You guys were just embracing, man. You actually taught us a lot. We learned a lot from you guys, and it's
you guys are so gracious.
It's great to catch back up with you as well.
Yeah,
so
gracious on the road.
You fellas were so happy, and you had such a bright spirit. You were so excited, and you were so fresh, and you were so nice. And then your level of excellence was so professional. Your talent was just mind-blowing. And I think we were just like in awe of you, to tell you the truth. And then the fact that you were so sweet just made you our favorites, our absolute favorites.
Well, that Al had a family mentality about him. That whole tour was such a big family for us.
Yeah.
We felt right at home.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys were the best. Nobody had an attitude. We were just killing it, having too much fun.
Way fun.
And off stage,
Literally.
It was
Remember how you guys would play basketball every day?
Non-stop.
Every day. I was like, check them out, man. They can hoop. Look at them.
It was amazing that we actually showed up every night unhurt.
Right.
Yeah, the hurts and aches and pains came later, trust.
Yeah, boy.
But back
Well,
then we
Felicia,
could do it.
Can you, for us and for everybody listening, can you give kind of a listing of the people that were in that band? Because there were some heavyweights along with yourself. I would just like for you to go through a list of those people.
Well, there was, of course, Al Jarreau.
Yeah.
And there was Neil Larson
Neil,
Mhm.
on keys. He was the band leader.
Yep.
Ricky Lawson was on drums.
On bet. Yep.
Doc Gibbs was the percussionist.
Right.
I think Kiki Ebsen was the other keyboard player and vocalist.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Buddy Ebsen's daughter, right?
Right, Buddy Ebsen's daughter.
Yes.
We used to call her Kiki Clankin.
India was out there.
And Ricky Minor on bass.
Yep.
Yes.
Ricky Minor
Mine's
on
on
bass.
base. Yep.
India Davenport.
Yep.
Yes.
On
Dia.
vocals.
Background singing, yeah. Vocal.
Michael Paulo on sax and Michael Patrick Stewart on trumpet and
That's
flugelhorn.
right.
And me on
Good
guitar.
Mm.
That was the band.
It was a master class
Great hit.
every night. We would check out the
Great
show
hit.
every night. And the energy of the band and the energy of Al every single night really let us see what touring was supposed to be about.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
you know,
Literally taught us
the
how
whole
to
vibe
entertain.
comes. I'm sorry.
I said it literally taught us how to entertain.
Same here, because it all comes down from the head, and that energy literally was fed to us by Al Jarreau.
That's right.
It's all because of his mindset and his spirit that we felt the way we did and just brought it. And he was so welcoming, and the man was so joyous and so secure with what he did that he would like push you out front, like, go on out there, go stand up there and do your solo. And I'd be like, I'm scared, you know, get on out there, girl, and do your solo. You know, he didn't care. The more you shine, the happier he was. That's the kind of person he was.
Man. Just
Rare,
celebration.
rare.
He was so happy to show the world Take Six. He was so, because he knew the audience was like, what?
Mm.
And you guys delivered every single night. People were just
Man.
floored.
It was. We had
Yeah,
such
we,
a
we
blast.
tell young people all the time, it's one thing to be able to have the facility to make sure that you can perform well, but it's another thing to be able to entertain the crowd. You're not just there to reproduce the record, you're there to entertain the crowd.
Right.
They paid money to see you, and that's what we learned literally at the feet of you masters.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys were like, man, you so deserving. And so I just remember being an instant fan. And back then, it's too bad, or maybe it's a good thing now that I think about it, that we didn't have the smartphones, camera phones.
Oh, no, that would work.
I was going to say there was one sound check in particular that I will never forget. I came up on stage. Normally, Al's band was like backstage during your sound check. But this one particular day, I don't know why, I came on stage to maybe get something, and you guys were in the middle of your sound check, and I was hanging out over by the monitor board, and Mark, you happened to look over and you saw me there, and you guys were doing Mary Don't You Weep, and you switched it to Felicia. And I was amazed how all the fellas just like, you did like this, and all the fellas went right there with you. Like a flock of birds, the way they just turn like instinctively. And then next thing I know, I'm hearing, oh, Felicia, don't you weep. And I looked and I couldn't believe it. I was like, somebody should be recording this. It's just up here. But I wish someone had recorded that. It was amazing. It was one of my favorite days on that tour.
Oh, we could do it again now.
Okay.
And we'll send it
Just
to
not
you.
right now.
Yeah.
I got a question
Felicia.
for you, Felicia.
Yes. Hey,
So-
Freddie.
Hey. So there were so many artists, so many sidecat musicians that later became artists. Is there a thing? What is that thing that when the musicians make that jump, can you spot it in other art in musicians that they have that thing to go to the next level? For instance, India, I think she was just singing background. I would have never known she would have later become an artist. But is there a characteristic that you can put your finger on that you can spot even now when you meet a young musician?
I think so. I think more so than it being something that they're going to change into or grow into. I think it's something that they were already.
Mm.
And I don't think India really planned on being on tour with singing background with anybody. It just happened. She was already an artist. She was already a singer. That was already her dream.
Right, right.
And I think most of these people, it starts off when they're kids, they're in their house and they're thinking about when they're going to write a song and sing a song and do the same thing that people do that have touched them. I know that's how it was for me. I didn't even know anything about being in other people's bands. I didn't know there was a such thing.
Wow.
Right.
I just thought that, oh man, I like what they're doing to me, this singer, this musician. That's what I want to do. That's what I want to be.
Right.
I had no idea I could actually be in someone else's band. I didn't know.
Wow.
I thought the only thing that was ever going to happen, if it happened, was one day I would just be me, an artist. But fortunately, there was this whole world that I could come through first. And I think that's what happens with these people, like you asked, that take the next step. I think they were already that.
Yeah.
The opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting that you say that the way that you said it, because it wasn't until, and I say this to anybody, for most of us, it's not until you get in the industry that you recognize how vast the opportunities actually are. It's not just, everybody's not going to be the solo artist. Everybody's not going to be, the main attraction, but there's a host of ways to make a living in the industry.
Right.
You can follow your dream if that's what your dream is.
And you might discover there's something else you enjoy more. Like when I started playing on the Letterman show, I had no idea that there was a gig like that where I could come to work and just play any song I ever liked.
And go home.
And no one told me, no, you can't do that. You have to stick with this type because your audience is this and your fans like you as this and blah, blah, blah. I do whatever I wanted.
Right.
Every day. We could just play whatever we wanted and connect dots. Well, by that, I mean, like, for instance, when Barbara Bush came on the show. And like, we get the rundown at the rehearsal. We usually have about half an hour, 45 minutes if there was a musical guest. And Paul would go, what are we gonna play for Barbara Bush? And he would take suggestions from anybody in the band. So right away I said, we gotta play In the Bush by Musique.
Oh, good. You got to.
Gotta play push, push in the bush. So of course Barbara had no idea what it was. She comes walking out and we're like,
no clue.
Cracking up going, oh no, they didn't play In the Bush for Barbara Bush. We did.
That's good stuff right there.
I love that.
And things like that was just fun. Like every day we could just look at the guests and go and try to connect their play-ons to something about them, whether it was their name or what they were known for or what they were promoting. We always made it fun like that. It was just a blast. Where else can you do that?
Well, was there, and those are the good, that's the good side. Was there any difficulty that you had to overcome making that transition?
Well, in the very beginning, I think for me personally, and unfortunately this didn't last long at all, but in the very beginning, I think they didn't really know what I could do. I was just this girl guitar player,
Just play what's on the sheet.
She'll play the clean sounds and the guy will play the distortion parts. So, I was like, whatever, so then when it got to the point where, because before we started singing, we would just do instrumentals of everything.
Right.
And I think Paul had me do I would play the lead for some song that U2 did, and their guitar player was singing it, and it was literally one note through the whole song. And I just looked at it and I'm like, you're kidding me, right? So, so I did it, but it wasn't any fun. And I just realized, I said, you know what the problem is? They don't know me. Because this was just the first, literally like the first month. I said, they don't know me. That's what it is. They just don't know me. So it all changed when one of the Saturday Night Live cast members came on. His name is Chris Kattan. And so when he was a guest, Paul was like, what can we play for him? And up until then, I was always trying to get us to do a Shaka song or a mandrill song.
Right.
And it was kind of a running joke. And this was back before, we had the internet at our fingertips to download songs. We couldn't do that. This was in the mid 90s, I think. And so Paul says, what can we play for him? I said, well, his biggest character on the show is called the Mango. I said, yeah. I said, and one of Mandrill's biggest songs is called Mango Meat. Let's play that. And Paul's like, do you know it? I was like, yeah. He goes, how's it go? And God bless Paul, he would trust me. I could be making something completely up and he would never know it. But he would just trust me and we'd play it. So I remember divvying out the parts. I said, well, here's the hi-hat part. This is the kick. This is the snare. The bass line goes like this. It's in this key. Here's the tempo. Here's one guitar part. The organ does this. You swell right here. The sax, trumpet, and trombone. Here's the voicings. And you come in, you play this line. And it was the beginning of Mango Meat, which they had no clue. They had never heard it. But they played it exactly like I asked them to. And then the next day, I came to work and I went and knocked on the guy's dressing room. And I said, you guys, I want you to hear how good you are. And I put in Mandrill's record and they thought it was from what we played on the show. Right before.
Wow, exactly the same. You nailed it.
After that, whew, I was having nothing but a good time after that.
All right. Awesome. That works.
So that to answer your question, that was something big that I had to overcome. That worked out really well.
I love it.
Was there ever a lot about where, no, sorry.
Good. We've been talking a lot about the Al Jarreau situation, and of course, the David Letterman show that you were on for 22 years. I know that you've worked with Nile Rodgers quite a bit and Cyndi Lauper and other people. Can you tell us some of the other people you've worked with and what those experiences were like?
Well, the first band I ever worked with was a British pop group called the Thompson Twins. And as a matter of fact, that was my very first gig. It was called Live Aid. I don't know if you guys were
Live Aid. Yeah, absolutely.
All downhill from there.
That was the first gig, and that was because of Nile. Nile was producing the Thompson Twins. And he had me come in the studio because they wanted to meet me. And I think because back then when Nile would produce your record, it was a stipulation that he would play guitar, he'd be the guitar player on the production.
Right.
And I guess they had asked him, like, well, when we go on the road with this record, where are we going to find somebody to play guitar like Nile Rodgers? And he goes, just so happens. I know this young woman who could totally handle that. So they wanted to meet me. And I was supposed to come. Niall called me up and said the Thompson Twins want to meet me. I said, the Thompson Twins? I said, that's who you're producing now? He said, yeah. I said, you're talking about Hold Me Now, those guys? And I said, okay. I said, when would you like me to come down? He said, can you come tomorrow? I said, no, I can't come tomorrow because my boyfriend is doing a gig with Shaka Khan and he's going to introduce me to Shaka Khan tomorrow.
Wow.
First things first.
First things first, right? So I said, I can come the next day if that's okay. And I went down and met them and they were just beautiful people. And I ended up, joining the band and going on tour with, I wasn't sure if I wanted to go on tour because I didn't know anything about that. I was really young. I didn't know anything. I was a graphic arts major. So
wow.
But when we got ready for Live Aid, and I saw all of a sudden, because at first it was just the three of them in the studio every day with Nile. But then when we had to do the Live Aid gig, then they flew in all their people.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the studio was just full of
Who's who?
they're not even the who's who, just their entourage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'd never seen that before.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, it was everybody just there to cater to them. And
Yeah.
I went,
Wow.
maybe I do want to do this, because I was kind of scared to go out on tour by myself.
I needed an entourage.
I said, I'm not going to be by myself. I'm going to be with all these people who are going to take really good care of me.
That's right. That's right.
So I worked with them. And then there was just a lot of sessions that I did with people, mainly because of Nile. You know, he would send me on sessions. Like I said, that's how I met Whitney. Hang out in the studio with Whitney was a blast. And just different people like Tom Jones and Steve Jordan. I remember playing with Steve Jordan. That was great. I've done a lot of things with him. And it just led me to getting to know the cats. You know, and then I realized I became one of the cats, you know, and I just started playing with everybody. Yeah. So you name a person, I've played with them. Pretty much.
Absolutely. I love it.
Crazy awesome.
Pavarotti.
Are you serious?
I'm telling you, everybody.
Genre after genre.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask Felicia, was there, after you got the Letterman gig, did you hear of a tour that was going out that who wanted you and you're like, oh, did that ever happen, or you were good?
No, that didn't happen after I got the Letterman gig. It did happen before, however.
Okay.
When I was with Al Jarreau. And I was in France, in a town called Montpellier. I'll never forget this.
We've been there.
And I get a phone call at the hotel from a guy named Nelson Hayes. He tracked me down, and he was calling me to ask me to play in Michael Jackson's band.
Wow.
And I think Michael had come to the Universal Amphitheater. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
In LA?
Back then, yeah.
Yeah. And because Al had done a New Year's Eve gig there, a show with Miles Davis as the opening. So it was a big show. I mean, everybody came to that one, including Michael.
Wow.
And so I guess he liked the funk. You know, he was digging the funk. And wanted to know if I was interested in being in his band for his upcoming tour. And I was like, yeah, but I'm on the road with Al. And it would have literally meant that I would have had to have left the tour and started working with Michael. And I just knew there was no way I could do that.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Because it would have left Al, I mean, he just would have
High
been,
and dry.
yeah. And that would have shook him up really bad. And there wouldn't have been anybody, because by then you remember our show, we had worked out things where I was doing vocals with him and choreography and all this stuff is falling apart. If any one of us left, not just me.
Yeah.
But so I asked him if it'd be okay. I said, well, we're gonna finish this leg and I'll have some time off come November. Would it be okay if I can come and see about it then? And he was like, no, we gotta get this going like now. So I couldn't do it. I said, your name will be mud if you do that. If you drop one tour to go to a bigger star in the middle of you can't do that.
Sounds like you got the right gig though.
Loyalty, big lesson there.
That's the one. That'll work.
That was the only time that ever happened.
Wow.
And then I got to meet Michael on that tour. And I let him know that that's what happened, because I didn't know if they explained it to him. So I got a chance to let him know what had happened. I didn't just turn them down.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
I didn't
I
just say
told my
no.
friend, no, I'm good. No, I didn't do that. So I let them know.
Love it. I love
That
it.
is amazing.
Felicia, thank you for being here with us. This is amazing. I'm so glad that you shared the story about how you've been feeling for the past year and that you're coming out of that in these last couple of weeks. That's brave for you to say that out loud to the world like that, but people need to hear it. So thank you for doing that with us.
You're welcome, Claude.
Absolutely.
Thank you for inviting me. And I can't tell you how happy I am to
Our
see
pleasure.
you guys. I miss you so much. It's been so long. I think of you guys so often, and I follow what you're doing. I'm so proud of you.
Likewise.
Likewise.
We'll have to hang out next time. Once they open up travel again, we can come to New York. We have to hang out.
Yes.
Absolutely.
For
Yeah.
sure.
So, Felicia, how can people reach you if they want to follow you on social media?
Well, I got Felicia M. Collins on Facebook. There's Felicia Collins Music, MUSIQ on Facebook. There's Felicia Collins Jukebox Live, Felicia's Jukebox Live, which is right before the pandemic. It was a thing I was doing every Wednesday in New York at the Cutting Room. And it was like I used to call it the Dope Pro Jam, because it was where all the cats came to see each other again, because I was missing people after Letterman was over. And I got so used to seeing all you cats on a daily basis, seeing you, playing with you. And then all of a sudden, I didn't see anybody anymore. And so many venues in New York, music venues, were just closing down. And it was awful. Like CBGB's is a clothing store now. It's crazy.
Wow.
I came up with this night basically just so I could see my friends again. And from the opening night, it was really big, and all the musicians would flock there every Wednesday, get up on stage and jam. Everybody, Sandra St. Victor, Liv Warfield, Bill Murray. I mean, just Chaz Palminteri, like everyone, the word was out. This is where you come, get your groove on. It was sort of like a Rock and Roll Studio 54 where very prominent people, stars and upcoming people could come and hang out, and nobody's gonna bother you. It's not, you know, New Yorkers, they don't care. So, but it was such a blast. I had this great core band. We never rehearsed, and I picked cats that I knew every song.
Absolutely.
And the people would just get up on stage. They get a couple drinks in them, and get up on.
And the fun would flow.
And the fun would start on it. We had Ben Vereen. He gets up. He does "My Girl" by the Temptations with all the choreography. It was just an absolute blast. Bill Burr, the comedian, he came and played drums on a few songs. And this is how it was every single Wednesday until that darn pandemic came around.
Man,
it will happen again.
It will happen again. Yes.
So to answer your question, Claude, people can find me all over Facebook, and also Felicia M. Collins on Instagram. And my website is, I think it's just FeliciaCollins.com. So they can find me.
We'll find you.
Awesome. So Felicia, we love you. Thank you for being here. And for those out here checking out our Spread Love podcast, like and subscribe to Take 6 Official and jump on Felicia's pages. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And thank you again for inviting me. I love you, brothers, so much. Be blessed. Continue to be blessed.
We love you.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Take care, sweetheart.
Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye,
Good night.
everybody.